Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter. So today, you guys know that there's not usually a ton of preparation involved in my podcast. I like to let them flow. Today, there's less preparation than usual. I just went down near the beach this afternoon. I was driving back, and you know how we're just kind of cooking along and thinking of useless things sometimes. And I don't even remember what I was thinking about, but I realized I was thinking about something, and I kind of looked at my thought, and this idea came behind it, and it basically said, who cares what you think? And I was like, it kind of surprised me, and I was like, what? And it's like, well, who cares what your opinion is? Like, why does your opinion matter? And as I was kind of opening up to that thought, it was all happening internal. So there was no defensiveness there, So I just kind of leaned into the idea that nobody really cares what my opinion is. Like I don't even care what my opinion is half the time. Really, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make much difference. It's not going to change anything really. So like as this kind of realization was coming to me, and I can't say that it was the first time I've had this realization. It was just kind of cool how it kind of came in. And as this realization was coming in, I felt this freedom. I felt like some weight being lifted off of me, and which I enjoyed, so I leaned into it more. And I just started contemplating it a little bit. I guess this is how I come to a lot of things, it's just something, a thought kind of crosses my mind, and then, I'll just kind of lean into it and see what's behind it. And then the information starts rising. And I was driving, and my drive home wasn't too far. And I had to stop and pick up some coconuts on the side of the road to get me my coconut water. All right. You guys are on, I've got them right here. So you guys on video get to see one. So I got some good ones today. Look at the size of this thing. It's bigger than my head. I got a tiny head, but still. Yeah, nice and green. That one's going to be filled with water. So I stopped and picked me up some cocos, and I thought about it a little bit more, but not that much more. I just kind of enjoyed contemplating it a little bit. And I thought, yeah, maybe I'll hop on and do a podcast. So here we are. So I have no idea where this is going to go. But it's funny. I think, wow, I'm just realizing this at this moment. I believe I titled the podcast "Opinions Are Like Assholes." And I believe I said that to somebody like just a couple days ago, like somebody that was messaging me. Not to them. I was trying to explain something. I wasn't saying, I wasn't attacking them personally. But to kind of branch off of that, when I was younger, I heard that, oh, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. They all stink. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, really, as I was thinking about this, I'm like, really, our opinions don't really matter that much. I mean, not in the grand scheme of things, and what the ego is, the ego always tries to go all the way to the other end, right? The ego doesn't like just contemplating a particular mindset. It likes to go to the extreme to kind of poo-poo on the idea. And so you don't really need to think about it. It's much easier not to think about this stuff, right? Like, so the ego just likes to swipe it away with this grandiose broom that says, in this case, the ego, I think the first thing that would come up, people would say, well, of course our opinions matter, because if everybody believes that war is a good idea, then we'll have more war. Right. Which, yeah, if you go all the way to the extreme and you start taking things like that into consideration, yeah, it's a valid point. That's not what I'm talking about, though. What I'm talking about is really the basis of most of the controversy on the planet. And that is the inability to make room for a comparing narrative. I heard that, oh my God, 17 years ago or something. And I still love that definition. The inability to make room for a comparing narrative. I heard that from Tolle, who was talking about somebody that I believe wrote an article about the Middle East, and the struggles and the wars and the fighting that's been going on in the Middle East for God knows how many thousands of years. So they said it all comes down to one thing: the inability to make room for a comparing narrative. So what that is the inability to make room for other people's opinions. Right. So, bring that into kind of, I grew up in the States. So of course, I use that as an example in a lot of things. So I was thinking, and politics is so right up in the forefront, and without diving into the political argument, because I'm not going to, but to implement what I'm talking about, using that as an example, I was thinking this part I actually thought of, and I was like, I know a fair amount of people who are Trump supporters that are really good people, that love their family, that are productive members of society, that I respect, that have always treated me well. And I know a lot of Biden supporters that are really good people and that I respect and love their families. And, and I know a lot of people who think both of them are off their rocker, that are really good people and love their family and I respect. So it's not, an opinion on who would be good to run the United States as the president, or pseudo run it, whatever you believe, to hold that office. It's, whoops, there's my bell going off. To me, it doesn't make somebody a good person or a bad person, and it's just their opinion on things. I used to I think we should probably go back to the way it was when I was growing up in this particular instance. People say that all the time, and I don't think that that's necessarily true in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed growing up the way that I did. And that's one of the reasons why I'm over here in the Dominican Republic. There's a lot of similarities to life over here now as it was when I was growing up. There's lots of freedom and stuff. So, but it doesn't matter what somebody's opinion on these things are. They can still be a good person, you know? So, which leads me to, okay, well, then what makes a bad person? Well, I think, you know, probably, I don't know. I'm not God. I guess, you know, if I had to take a stab at it, I would think maybe acting on negative opinions, you know, like having opinions that one group perceives hurts them. Like it's the perception that's the problem. You know, we're willing to go to war against people over perceptions, over opinions, over thoughts, over what might happen. Which I think is bad. Like it's we fight with each other over opinions a lot of times. It's like, why? It's just an opinion. You know, if somebody says, well, I don't like people from Massachusetts that grew up in Massachusetts, you know, because I grew up in Massachusetts. Somebody says, I don't like people who grew up in Massachusetts. I think they're all jerks. Well, they have their right to their opinion. Like, how does that hurt me? It doesn't. You know, now if they come at me and say, like, you know, you grew up in Massachusetts, so therefore you have to die, well, then that's a problem. You know, then I defend myself. You know, so I think it's the action more than the opinion, which we have millions of thoughts all the time that we don't act on. It's just opinions. So who cares? You know, and it's freeing. And I think like this is part of not, you know, I guess this is the other avenue. I guess I did contemplate this more than I thought. I was thinking, like, you know, why do we hold on to our opinions so tightly? And I think it's because we use it as an identity, as part of our identity, you know? So because we don't, I mean, as a general rule, I believe that we are spiritual beings having human experience. So my outlook is that we are eternal, perfect, loving, spiritual beings at our core. And that's what we truly are. And that never changes. It's eternal. And we are temporarily here having a human experience, which is very experiential and is supposed to include all kinds of a myriad of emotions and experiences and things. And so like but that's temporary and it's fleeting and it's ever changing. So you can't really lock on to anything in the temporal realm is my point. Like, I don't believe that I am the roles that I play. Like, I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm not a life coach. I'm not a father or a son, or like those are roles that I play temporarily during this life. Like before I became a father, I was still me. And then I became a father. So like now all of a sudden I changed the foundation of who and what I am. Well, if it's the foundation, if it's if it's not changing, it's actually what I am, then it doesn't change. So I can't add and subtract to it necessarily, you know? So it's not, this is, you know, part of my favorite quote: nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So that's kind of a foundation of the way that I look at things. It's nothing real can be threatened. I can't be threatened, not the real me. Whatever's temporary can be threatened. So therefore it's temporary and it's fleeting. And so I can't latch onto it as my identity. So that's how I look at life and my existence. And of course I get lost into this temporal realm sometimes and get caught up in it and stuff like that. So I don't do it perfectly, but at the end of the day, that's what I believe. So these opinions of mine, like, they're just fleeting and they change. I thought many things differently when I was a kid than I did as a teenager, than I did in my 30s, and I did in my 40s, and I did in my 50s. I'm constantly evolving and growing, and my opinions and my outlooks are constantly changing. So why latch onto them so tightly? Why think they're so important? Why argue over them? Right? So I think if we can get to that argue, let go of the arguing. That's, I think, I don't think I finished my thought earlier. I was saying, when we were young, like, they didn't talk about politics, not, at least not around, not very often, and not when I grew up. Most people, if you heard it come up, like, they'd be like, "Oh, who are you voting for?" Most of the time, people would say, "It's none of your business." Like, even spouses wouldn't discuss who they were voting for. And, like, that's their, I mean, I heard that several times. The topic came up and they're like, "Oh, well, what about your wife? Who's your wife voting for?" And, like, "I don't know. We don't talk about it." Like, really? Yeah. We don't talk about it. Who she votes for is her business. Who I vote for is my business. And I like that, because you can still stand in what you believe to be true without trying to sway other people. And if you're not trying to sway other people and you're not even aware of what they're thinking, then you can't judge them for it. Because that's, I think we latch on, not only do we latch on to these opinions as part of who we are, part of our identity, but we also project it onto other people, like their opinions are part of who they are. You see it all the time. I mean, people love to attack Trump, and, I think he's a knucklehead, just right along with Biden, personally. So, I mean, I can see why people would attack either one of them, personally. But, like, people, whoever's attacking, like, they'll go so far as to say that, like, if you like Trump, then I hate you because you're a bad person. It's like that I don't know, man. That I'm not going to go too far into the politics with this, but I just don't I just don't I just don't like that. I don't like that we can just judge other people as good or bad and just minimize them into one thing. And, like, I know what's wrong with Trump. I know what's wrong with Biden. But there are many different perspectives, many different outlooks, many different ways of looking at things to make sense of the world around us. We are individuals. We are supposed to look at different things different ways. We're supposed to have different opinions. If we're all supposed to be the same, then we would all have been created the same. We're much more capable when we come together, which we're really not good at right now, and that's the problem. When we come together, we actually, and respect each other's opinions and don't take them that seriously and don't judge one another for them, then we can come together, because we're not like, "Oh, you're a bad person because of it." Like, then we can actually have conversations and stuff, and we can work through things and come to a solution. But, like, when you're not willing to do that, it just polarizes everything. It just pushes everybody away. And it's like, "Oh, no, you," like, we have, what came first, the chicken or the egg? We have become what we see in politics. But I guess we're already doing it on an unconscious level, and the politicians were just reflecting it back to us, and we allowed it. But now we used to see the politicians attacking each other. And, when did that start? Like really bad. Like I think it was maybe the 80s or 90s where they really were like starting to character assassinate one another. And I remember thinking like, geez, like why don't you just talk about your issues, man? Like what you believe in instead of just attacking each other. And then now the public, we've hopped on board and that's what we do. It's like, it's no longer about the policies. Like I've seen all kinds of political stuff. I have no idea for the most part what Trump or Biden stands for, partially because I'm not really interested, because I think they're both out of their minds. But nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about what Biden is for and what he's doing, or what Trump is for and what he's doing. That's a general rule. I mean, you might see a post here or there, but it's more just about attacking one another. And then if you like one of those people and I'm on the other side, then you're my enemy. This is what caused all the wars. It's the dehumanizing. That's why I don't think opinions matter that much, because when we start mistaking people for their opinions, like thinking that their way of looking at something means more than it's just simply their opinion. It's all it is. People, it's just an opinion. It doesn't really matter. Like I'm trying to find a way to explain this. Most of our opinions don't matter. So it would be easier to explain things that aren't political, because whenever we talk politics, then people go, oh yeah, but if you don't vote, then blah, blah, blah. And all this stuff. So there's that egoic block when you get into that. But like, even that, like we're in the information age. People have the ability to research on their own. Like we could completely stop talking about politics altogether. And I bet you if we stopped talking about politics, I bet you more people would vote. Because what happens is people just think that they're actually doing something by voicing their opinions. They get this serotonin or some sort of positive feedback within them, dopamine or something, that thinks that they actually stood up for something by posting on social media or getting into an argument with somebody or something. It's just feeding the ego. It's just making us more right and the other side more wrong, creating more separation. So it doesn't it doesn't matter. Like I said, I mean, I don't even know, like what's some of my opinion. I'll try to kind of see if I can just spit out a few opinions and see how they don't matter. Like I have an opinion on, I'm doing this big land project called Mountain Ridge Sanctuary. I'm purchasing a bunch of land here in the Dominican Republic, and I'm selling sections of it to like-minded people who want to preserve nature but want a peaceful little place where they can get away. Or there's all kinds of permaculture investment opportunities that you can do with the land, and all kinds of stuff like that. If you can always look into it. My stuff's out there. So I'm doing this, and I have an opinion on the way that I should go about this land project, and other people have other opinions how I should go about this land project, or how a land project of this magnitude should unfold. I don't care. Like I don't, when I'm doing something, I really don't care what other people's opinions are, because it gets in the way of my goal. I mean, I'll listen to their opinions. I'm not closed-minded. I will listen to them and hear them. And if they make sense and I go, wow, I never looked at it like that, I think I'll shift my opinion on this and kind of go the direction you were saying. Like if that happens, cool. But a lot of times it doesn't. and I do things my way. And I really don't care. And sometimes it really bothers people because they think they're right. They're not. They're not. They're not right. I'm not right. Nobody is right. There's more than one way to buy land in the Dominican Republic. It's just what resonates with me, what seems to be right with me, what feels right to me. That's how I do things. I think that that's why I drive people crazy sometimes, because they'll have all these reasonings, like people think information and knowledge is so important. And I just don't think it is. I do things by feel more, and I can make assessments on very little information. And I don't mean that in a way that I don't do my due diligence and I don't think things through. That's not what I mean by very little information. What I mean by very little information is very little information compared to what other people think I need. I don't need a ton of information to make a lot of decisions. Like, let's say somebody says, I want to sell my land really fast. That's what I want to do. And so basically, I'm going to sell it to the first person that gives me the money. Now, some people think I should spend all kinds of time researching why they think that way, what they think that, what's the background behind that? What can we do? Because maybe if we figure out the background behind it, maybe we can find a back door to come around and approach them a different way to try to achieve something else that we want. Because we'd rather do it a different way, and we'll try. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Like, for me, they made it really clear that they're going to sell it to the first person that comes up with money. So I'm not going to try to spend all my energy and days and weeks and months trying to talk them into doing it a different way than they don't want to do. Why don't I just try to get them the money? That's what they want. I'd like the land. They'd like the money. So why don't I just try getting them the money, and then I'll get the land? Like, that's just, and if that feels right, that's what I'm going to do. And nobody's going to knock me off of it. Again, they can come at it. Yeah, but Glenn, what about this? I'll listen briefly, but I'm not going to talk about it over and over and over and over. And then people think I'm hard-headed, and it's like, it's my project. I don't have to. I don't care if you agree. Like, I don't care if people agree with my opinion. That's not why. Like, I don't do things certain ways to please other people. So I don't care. I understand that a lot of things that I do and a lot of things that I say, people aren't going to like. They're going to disagree with. I get it. Fine. I don't understand why that's a problem. Of course, we're individuals. Of course, we're going to see things different ways. Of course, you're going to think that I'm going to do something differently. I remember before I woke up, this was a problem, and I still see it in the majority of people in their work lives. One of the biggest problems that I hear when people are complaining about their job, like if I oversimplify it, is that the company isn't doing what they want the company to do. And it's like, so what? You don't, that's not what a job is. Like, most people are not the decision makers. And if they are the decision makers, then the decision makers are making the decisions. So they don't have this problem, right? So the people at the top that are actually making the decisions for the company, they're not walking around going, oh my God, this company never does what I want it to. Of course it does. It does exactly what they want it to. Why? Because they're in control of making the decisions about what the company does. That's their role. Everybody underneath them, it's not their role. That's not why they hired you. They didn't hire you to run the company. They hired you to do your job. And if you don't like doing what other people say, I suggest you start your own business. I don't like doing what other people think is right. That's why I started my own business, because I don't like doing what other people think is right. Now, when I had jobs, I will bite the bullet and do it once I woke up. Before I woke up, I fought it just like everybody else. And I was like, oh my God, this is rah, 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 rah. And I'm not saying that there's no validity in this argument. Like, I mean, quite honestly, what was that show I used to watch? Undercover Boss. It always used to crack me up that people didn't catch on that they were part of that show. Or even more so, like that the person would be surprised. If you've never seen that show, they'd take somebody like the owner of a company or a CEO or somebody at the top, a decision maker, right? And they would put them undercover into their own organization, and they would be like, oh my God, these people that work for me are wonderful, and they're human beings, and they bust their butt, and they have really good ideas, and I never listened to them, and I'm such an idiot. And like, of course, in a perfect world, the people at the top would listen to people underneath and get their opinions on how to run the company, seeing how they're into it. Like, personally, I think that that's the correct way to run a business. However, even if that were the case, which usually it's not, the higher ups would still have to make decisions. Why? Because that's their job. They've worked their way up the ladder. So that's like, if you want to make the decisions, this is how I looked at it. This is how I got myself to shut my mouth and stop struggling against this. Is I was like, well, they, like it or not, they did whatever they took. Maybe they went to college. Maybe they took an entry-level job. Maybe they kissed ass. Maybe they worked their way up the company. Who knows? They did whatever it took to get to where they are. And now that they're there, they get to make the decisions. If I want to make the decisions, I need to do something similar to get to where they are. And then I can make the decisions. Until that day comes, I have to abide by them. It's their role. It's not my role. So resisting the reality of my role causes suffering. All suffering is resistance to what is. So it doesn't matter what my opinion is about how to run the company and how many people I can run around. That's what people do, is they run around getting support from one another, that they're a victim of the company. They go, oh, like, don't you think we should be doing this? Yes, yes. Don't you think the CEO's an idiot? Yes, yes. Oh, okay. See, I'm right. I'm right. And then that's an ego stroke. I'm right. They're wrong. Create separation. Then we think we feel better. We feel a little bit empowered for a moment, but it's pseudo empowerment because it's egoic empowerment, and it doesn't mean anything and doesn't change anything. It just makes us feel good momentarily, and literally momentarily, because when you keep doing that, you keep feeling good momentarily, right? What happens after you do that for a year, 2 years, 3 years? What happens is that starts becoming more and more part of your identity. You're right, they're wrong. You're right, they're wrong. And then this job that you were so nervous to go on the interview for, and you wanted so badly, and you were praying the night before that you would get this job. And then here you are a year, 2 years, 3 years later, and you hate everything about it. Oh my God, this company is a bunch of morons and they don't do anything right. And rah, 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 rah. Like, so actually you think, you get confused by that momentary empowerment that I'm better than them, because if it was up to me, I'd do things differently. And everybody around me that I talk to seems to tell me that I'm right. So I must be right. So we feel better about ourselves in the moment. But what we're doing is we're tainting the scenario we're in. We're just teaching ourselves to hate our job. And then we wonder why we hate our job. Like, how many life coaching clients come to me and the first thing that they want to do is change their job? I mean, over the years, it's been many. And most of the time, that doesn't happen in the beginning. Because most of the time, really, when you just accept what your role is, like a job is just a commitment. It's an agreement. So you say, okay, you pay me a certain amount of money and I will go to your place of business and perform these tasks to the best of my ability. That's it. They give you money, you perform a task. That's what a job is. If you start making it more than that, you're going to suffer. Why? Because it's not more than that. So you are resisting reality, so therefore you are suffering. You're creating this false reality. And a lot of times jobs serve us. They serve us, especially when you start life coaching. A lot of times these jobs that people hate, they can do in their sleep. They take very little energy. And there's nothing better than something that takes very little energy, that'll pay your bills, to hold you over while you dive into some deep personal work, because that takes a lot of energy. So a lot of times when, we look at it first, I mean, yes, there are some times when people are in work situations that need to be changed, and I guide them through that change. I'm just saying, probably if you take 100 people that came to me life coaching, and in the beginning, one of the things that they said is they think they need to change their job. Out of 100 people, probably 5 have changed their job right off the bat. Maybe 10, the most. 90% of the people do not. Because when you look at it, usually you just need a perspective shift and reset yourself, and you got to change the way you look at it. The way you look at it is what's causing the suffering. And then in other times, you can have that job serve you to focus on yourself. Other times when you look at the job and you break it down, you just have a problem with one aspect of the job. 3/4 of it you like. So if you just tweak that aspect, all of a sudden life is good again, because when we tend to hyper focus on what's wrong. We don't pay attention to what's right. It's like when I was driving and I was like judging the bad drivers. Oh, this driver's an idiot. This driver's an idiot. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, wait, if I'm going to judge, I need to judge fairly. So I need to judge everybody. So I'm like, yeah, that one drives like an idiot. And I was like, okay, how about the other cars? And I'm like, oh, that one, 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 that one. All are driving fine. And then I started scanning around going, oh my God, there's got to be 100 cars around me right now that are driving fine, and one that isn't. And I'm focused on the one that isn't. Then you go on social media, or you get to work, or you hang out with your friends and you go, oh my God, drivers suck, don't they? There's so many idiot drivers on the road. Not really. No, it's probably about 1% of idiot drivers on the road. Again, opinions. Do you see, like, hopefully you're following the thread with this, because I know that, I'm bouncing around topic to topic to topic, but, keep in mind, it's all about showing how opinions don't matter. It's like I said, it takes the humanity out of us when we start pretending that opinions are what make people who they are. There's lots of different ways of looking at things. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't suck the humanity out of somebody because of a belief system. Especially one that we don't understand. Because most of the time we don't. It's just not ours, so it's BS. So blah, blah, blah. But like I said, this is how all the wars have happened, because like every religion, really a lot of the wars were religious in nature in the beginning, right? Years ago. And every religion says thou shalt not kill. And then we go kill in the name of God. Well, how the hell do we? Oh my God, that makes me laugh every time. How do you rationalize that? It seems so obvious that it's ridiculous, but yeah, humanity's been doing it for like thousands of years, more. So it's like, the way we do it is by taking the humanity out of people, by judging them based on the way they think. So somebody believes in a particular religion, and then they go, well, I don't believe in that religion, I believe in this other religion. Then they go, oh, you're a danger to our religion. Then you're a non-believer. And I've said this many times, when you label somebody as something, they actually, on an unconscious level, we don't know we're doing it, this is why we can get away with it, is we actually are replacing their humanity with the belief system, with the ideology of what they are. They're a non-believer now. They're not a human being. And if you ask people, they'll be like, no, that's not true. I believe that they're human beings. Well, yeah, but your actions say different, right? Your actions say different. You can intellectually, of course, they're a human being, but on a deeper level, that's where this happens, on a deeper level. And the deeper level is what controls people's actions. So on a deeper level, you're actually stripping them of their humanity, and now they're a non-believer. Non-believer you can kill. Why? Because you perceive them as to be a danger, which they're not most of the time. But like, so why can you kill a non-believer? Because they're not a person. They're not a human being. They're not a fellow human being, because God said we can't kill other human beings. We're not allowed to judge them. We're not allowed to kill them. And yet we judge them and kill them all the time. Well, how could we do that? Well, we have to say that they are something other than a human being. They are bad. And then that has to literally replace their humanity for us to psychologically get away with killing them. Otherwise, we would be going against God's law. We'd be going against what's okay in our whole, like almost everybody on the planet. If you say, hey, is it okay if you just kill other people? Like, whether they're religious or not, they're going to be like, no. So we're not supposed to kill one another? No. Oh, okay. Well, how can we do it all the time? How come we have killed each other nonstop for 100,000 years if everybody thinks it's wrong? Because we rationalize and make it okay somehow. And the people at the top are the leaders of that. They'll gather a group of people together and they'll be like, hey, look, they're a danger to us, and they're Satan, and they're bad, and they'll do this and they'll do that. That they scare the public, and they go, they're going to take away your whole way of living that you love, and we have to protect ourselves. So God's going to save us, and we're going to go kill all of them in the name of God. And the other side's saying the same thing. You ever notice that? Like, in a religious war, like, both sides are saying, God, help us kill the other side. Like, well, and they both think they're right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. This is opinions. It's absurd. So really, my point with all this, I know, like, I kind of got real deep into the conceptual understanding of it, quite honestly, a little deeper than I planned on. But that's where the podcast went. But we already did that. So I do want to kind of bring it back into everyday life and hopefully pass the message along, because this really, like, when I first got this insight, like I said, I felt this release. I felt this freedom. I felt this pressure lifted off of me by becoming more aware that my opinion didn't matter. And that's what I want you guys to experience in your everyday life. Because, I believe everything that I teach, I believe if you implement it in your everyday life, you're going to experience life in a more peaceful, contented, happier way. And that's what I want for you. So let's take this concept and bring it into everyday life. And it's like, how, thankfully, every once in a while you'll see on social media somebody say there'll be a post where it says, you know what happened to me yesterday? I was scrolling through social media and I saw something that I didn't agree with, and I just kept scrolling. I didn't comment on it or anything. Like, see, people are starting to pick up on this, right? That's we can actually do that. And I think if we tried to do that, like, it's okay to voice your opinion here and there. I'm not saying that we can never voice our opinion about anything. I'm saying that I bet you if we just tried to not voice our opinions, or just tried to seek out where our opinions weren't necessary or needed and hold back on them more than we share it, then we'd see a pretty big shift in society. I think we'd see a huge shift in society. Because most of it doesn't matter. Nobody cares what I think about just about anything. I mean, of course the listeners to the podcast do. That's why but that's how it should be. Like, not everybody is supposed to be a podcast host or a TV personality or a radio personality or a societal leader or whatever the heck you want to call it, where when people talk, other people like to hear what they have to say. Like, there's certain people that are like that. And this is what my followers are. This is why they follow me, because they like listening to the way that I phrase things. Okay, cool. So I am one who kind of makes a living by sharing my perspectives and my opinions with other people. And the people who like what I say resonate with what I say. And many people don't like what I say and don't resonate. And that's cool too. Like that, I don't think people, like, whenever people I grew up with, family, friends, say, Glenn, I can't believe you wrote a book. I want one of your books. I want to read your book. The first thing I always tell them is, I say, hey, cool. Absolutely. And if I can, I'll autograph one for them. But I always tell them the same thing. Like, it's not for everybody. This is just my book, the way that I see things. So, like, if you don't like it, don't worry about it. It's cool. Because, I know a lot of people that I grew up with aren't looking at life the same way that I am, but they want to support me. And that's so nice of them. So I just want to keep it about, hey, they're excited for me and they want to support me because I wrote a book. And I want to keep it about that. That's a nice gesture. I appreciate that. That to me is what's important. Like, that's not an opinion. That's an action. They're like, wow, Glenn wrote a book. I want to support him. And I'm a little curious as to what he has to say too. So I'll read it. But I'm going to go buy it and support him. Because I knew that dude growing up. And that's freaking nice, period. I could give two craps whether they like my book or whether they don't like my book. They have the right to their opinions. And maybe they'll like a quarter of it and not like 3/4 of it. That's fine too. Like, it doesn't, see what I mean? It doesn't matter what their opinion is. They're good people. And they're acting like good people by trying to support me in this particular example. Isn't that what's more important? I think that's actually a really good example of what I'm trying to convey. Like, there are so many good people out there, and we're pushing them away, and we're, this is weird. Somebody just posted this morning. I happened to see this post on social media. Somebody that was in the States, and they come to the Dominican Republic regularly. And they were talking about connecting with more people in the DR because a lot of people in the States where they are kind of keep to themselves more. And even if you talk to them a little bit about it, you never really connect with them and become friendly. Whereas over here, it's very different. Like, you can talk to somebody on the street and end up going to dinner with them and develop a really good friendship. That type of thing happens all the time over here. It's much more community oriented, and it's much more open, and people connect much easier, and I think it's part of the vibe of the island. But it's also because I think travelers are like that. Expats are like that. When you leave your country and you go to a different culture and you're the newbie, like, it really serves you to drop a lot of the preconceived notions that you had and open up to receive other people's perspectives and not be so judgmental and connect with other people. Because you're in a completely different area, right? Like, it's helpful to be immersed into the culture as opposed to be standing on the outside. And that's one of the things that I love over here. So I think we need to do that more in our lives. It's like, where we trust the government and the pharmaceutical companies, which is mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. I don't know how many times people have to get caught lying to people until people start going, oh my God, they're liars and we can't trust them. But they're scared of their next door neighbor. They're scared to make a connection with the next door neighbor or the people in their neighborhood or the people at the gym. Everybody keeps to themselves. Not all the time, but way too much. We need to start connecting with people again. And one of the best ways is just not taking their opinion so freaking seriously. Who cares? Oh, we disagree. Yeah, all right. So you want to go grab a slice of pizza? I'm hungry. Oh, we agree on that. Pizza it is. Or no, I want wings. Okay, well, we'll go to a place that has pizza and wings. Brilliant. So most things that we get upset about, most things that we complain about, most things that we argue over, we don't have to. So just try practicing this, looking at it and go, like, you still get to keep your opinions. You can have them, whatever they are, you can have them. It's just, they're not that important to share with other people. And if you are in a situation where you're sharing them with other people and they disagree and they have a different opinion, it's okay. I've been saying this for quite a while. I don't understand where we got the idea that we're supposed to all agree with one another. We're not. It would be a very boring world. Wasn't it that, like, the Stepford Wives and stuff, they had, like, almost like a freaking horror movie about what would happen if we all became the same. Like, we're not supposed to be the same. We're supposed to be individuals. We're supposed to think differently. And when we come together, like, with the freedom of exchanging opinions and perspectives in order to create something massive that we couldn't create individually, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, right? But then there's the rest of the time when we're not coming together to create something beautiful with everybody else. That's what we really need. Well, we have to work on that too. But I think even more so, we need to work on what we're just everyday life when we're not trying to come together and create things. We're just having conversations. Well, I look at it this way. Oh, well, I look at it this way. Huh. And sometimes, sometimes if you feel like debating it a little bit, you can. Sometimes I'll get really, I love the town that I grew up in. So many good people. And, one of the things that I like is most of the time when people debate with me, most people, actually the town I grew up with, definitely, and actually most other people in my life, if I lean into debate with people for a little bit, usually 90% of the time it stays respectful. Every once in a while it goes off. But most of the time it stays respectful, which is, I think, so cool. We can do that. I think it's I think it doesn't matter why. It just matters that people are being respectful towards one another. And if we want to be good people, I think we need to get back to that. Let's be respectful of one another's opinions instead of judging everybody for their opinions, and cutting them out of our lives and labeling them as bad people, and they must be out of their minds. Why? Because they think differently, so they must be crazy. Come on, guys. Like, let's just, can't we all just get along? Can't we learn something from that statement so many years ago? Can't we all just get along? Our differences, for the most part, don't matter. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to love. Everybody wants to take care of their families. Everybody wants to be able to eat and be safe and have shelter. Like, we all want the same things. We are so more alike than we are different. All our opinions are way, way, way up on the surface of the surface. They don't matter. They don't matter. This is, I just realized, like, my whole sleeve is all different pathways to God. My tattoo sleeve, it's all Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Taoism. What else? They're all on here. Shinto and Baha'i and others. So, like, the point of this sleeve is, I've got in calligraphy here that there's as many paths to God as souls on earth. And I believe that to be true. And it's not just paths to God, it's paths of life. Like, I don't care what people believe. I don't care what religion they are. Like, if they're respectful to one another and they love and they're kind, like, that's all. Just do that. And I don't even care who they vote for or what their opinion is about freaking pineapple on pizza. I don't care. I'll listen to it to make conversation on the surface, but I'm not going to judge them for it. So, yeah, that's it. I'm just going to wrap up with this. Just, if we can just try not expressing your opinion. I'm going to try it, which is hard because half my business is giving my opinion. So when it's appropriate, I will give it. But just out in everyday life, I've been pulling back on this recently anyway, but I'm going to do it even more so. I'm going to pull back on my opinion and not share it quite so often. And I think as I become more mindful of that, I'm going to be able to pick and choose where I share it better. And when I do share it, I'm going to be conscious while I'm sharing it because I'm kind of being more cautious of what I'm doing. So then I'll kind of be like, if somebody disagrees, I'll already kind of be in that mindset of, what, it's okay if they don't agree, which will cut back on the arguments. Not that I get into a lot of arguments, but I do get into some. So yeah, I'm going to wrap up with that and think about it. Got any questions? Let me know. All that good stuff. I think that's it. All right. Peace.